convene our regular meeting. We just had a very lengthy session for the library that went, I think, really well.
Yeah.
Great discussion, well over 40 visitors in the room on that one. If you look at our packet tonight, I tried to weigh them. I think we're about 18 pounds. So staff, you have definitely done your work, unless you're on the iPad here. And
3 pounds.
And his weighs 3 pounds, but it's...
I thought you paid me by the weight. I thought that's how I got paid.
That's right, the staff gets paid by the weight. But at this time, we have a real lengthy agenda ahead of us and a lot of presentations, so we will start with roll call, please.
Councilmember Patridge?
Here.
Councilmember Kowalczyk?
Here.
Councilmember Alifano?
He's in the building.
Okay. Oh, there he is. Okay. Vice Mayor Fraser?
Here.
Mayor Mueller?
Here, we're all present. Pledge of allegiance, please.
Yep, so you're here.
Thank you. And at this time, we have presentations from a group called Evolve, and we will ask you for your courtesy and make your presentation as best as possible within the limits here because of our full evening tonight. So welcome.
Thank you. Is there a timer I should be looking at?
Yes, when I tell you, no more.
All right.
Welcome to Half Moon Bay.
Thank you. Well, my name is Courtney. I'm an organizer with Evolve. We're a local nonprofit that works to increase education funding in California. And I'm here tonight to talk about our resolution to reform Prop 13. So thank you so much for having me in your packed agenda tonight. So we're at a crossroads in California. With education funding, per pupil education funding ranked 49th in the country, and municipalities across the state struggling to fund basic services, we have two options. We can cut services further, or we can generate more revenue. And for those of us who believe that our state should increase revenue, then the fairest way to do that is by reforming Prop 13. Now, I say reform Prop 13, not repeal. Prop 13 was meant to protect people, and it should remain in place to protect people. This reform will keep protections for homeowners, apartment owners, renters, and small business owners. This campaign is focused on making large, non-residential, commercial property owners pay their fair share. Today in California, as you can see, homeowners pay 72% of property taxes in California, while commercial property owners only pay 28%. And this wasn't the case prior to Prop 13. Here in San Mateo County, the discrepancy is even greater. Homeowners shoulder 81% of the property tax burden, with commercial property owners only paying 19%. Now, how is this possible? Under Prop 13, all property in California is only reassessed when it changes hands. For homeowners, that happens about every 10 years on average in California, while commercial property owners rarely change hands. So they're rarely, if ever, reassessed. For example, the Walt Disney Corporation is paying just 5 cents a square foot in property taxes for Disneyland, while the average California homeowner pays 40 cents a square foot for its property. Another example is Chevron. Prop 13 allows Chevron to be undertaxed by nearly $1 billion every single year. And that's $1 billion that should be funding public education and social services. And while these commercial property owners pay less, individuals are paying more. Today in California, we pay the highest income and sales taxes in the entire country. And as I'm sure you're all aware, cities are forced to rely on temporary revenue measures like bond measures, parcel taxes, and hotel taxes. Between 2001 and 2012, California voters approved nearly 1,500 new revenue measures just to make ends meet. And here in San Mateo County, in just the last 2 years, voters have approved 26 local revenue measures, and still, cities are forced to make drastic cuts. Now, it doesn't have to be this way. By making corporations pay their fair share of property taxes, we can restore at least $6 billion every year without increasing the burden on individuals. Now, opponents of this reform will tell you that this will be bad for business. This is simply not the case. Currently, two businesses side by side offering similar services may pay vastly different property taxes, but they have to offer similar prices to remain competitive. Now, forcing new businesses to pay a disproportionate property tax burden is dampening the enterprising spirit of California. And in every other place in the country, commercial property is already reassessed regularly and provides a stable form of revenue. It's time to put our state on par with the rest of the country. And the good news is that most Californians agree. A new PPIC poll shows that 59% of likely voters in California support regular reassessment of commercial properties. And that's where you come in. So far, 77 city councils and school boards from across the state have already adopted our Close the Loophole resolution to tell Sacramento that we need to find a way to make Prop 13 work for the people that it was meant to protect. So I urge you to put our resolution on your next city council agenda and take a stand for tax fairness. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your presentation, and staff will take it under consideration and report back to us.
All right, thanks again.
Thank you. Next will be San Mateo County Sheriff's Lieutenant Muncie. Year-end report, please.
Mayor, Council, on behalf of Sheriff Greg Monks and the men and women of the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office, I wanted to start by thanking you for giving the Sheriff's Office the opportunity to serve the city of Half Moon Bay for another year. Some of the topics that I want to go over today are law enforcement services, calls for service, crime trends, arrests, customer service satisfactory survey, ancillary services, notable events, activities, accomplishments, and future plans. Response times, calls for service. Response times from June 2013 to May 2014. The average response time to emergencies for calls for service were 3 minutes, 19 seconds. The contract calls for an average of 4 minutes, and we are well into that. Average response time for non-emergency calls for service was 9 minutes, 33 seconds. Calls for service from June 13th to May 2014 were 11,793. 6,391 of those were citizen initiated. 5,402 of those were deputy initiated. It is an almost identical number to last year's 11,710. Crime trends and traffic enforcement. Part 1 crimes reported and arrests. The number of reported incidents and arrests for Part 1 crimes remains very low. Part 1 crimes reported were 251. Part 1 crimes arrests were 44. Traffic enforcement, moving parking violations, we had 1,121 moving citations, 1,194 parking citations. Now, Part 1 crimes, which include homicide, sexual assault, robbery, assault, burglary, theft, and motor vehicle theft, and arson. At the end of May 2013, we showed 199. At the end of May 2014, we showed 251, which, as you can see, is an increase by 52. Oops, I'm sorry. That'll help you. Sorry about that. You can see it's an increase by 52. And the reason for that is a glitch in our computer system where some data was missing for 3 months, and the making up of that is exactly 3 months. The reason why I'm showing you is just in the interest of transparency that I want to show you the exact numbers we have. But it's every belief that the number is closer to the 251 for last year, and we're about the same as last year. Part 1 crimes, arrests, and DUI at the end of May 2013, we had 73 DUI arrests and 31 other Part 1 crime arrests. This year, at the end of May, we had 67 DUI arrests and 44 other Part 1 crime arrests. Moving on parking citations, at the end of May 2013, we had 1,155 moving citations and 1,326 parking citations. At the end of May 2014, we had 1,121 moving citations and 1,194 parking citations. I'm sorry, I did it again.
You need a deputy here to help.
I need a deputy to help
Yeah,
me big time.
Use your authority, call him up. Chief
Here's a
Violet.
smack in the head. All right, thank you. Customer satisfaction survey. These are surveys that are sent out to people that we have serviced through taking crime reports. 100% either agreed or strongly agreed with the following statements. Overall, I am satisfied with the level of service I received from the Sheriff's Office. The deputy displayed professionalism during their contact with me. The deputy displayed job knowledge and technical competence. The deputy showed care and concern during their interaction with me. We had 30 surveys mailed out, and we had 9 returned. Some of the ancillary duties, the city and community events that the Sheriff's Office participates in, the Pumpkin Festival, Night of Lights, Rock the Block, 4th of July Parade, Shamarita Parade, Disaster Preparedness, which this year we incorporated with Rock the Block, Half Moon Bay International Marathon, and Santa on the Coast. Our school resource officer, community policing, and sheriff's activities league has been extremely busy and productive on the coast this year. Through the passage of Measure A, the Sheriff's Office added a second school resource community policing officer to the coast at no added expense to the city. They worked diligently. They worked with the Board of Education throughout the county. Now I don't feel so bad. Again, through the passage of Measure A, the Sheriff's Office added a second school resource officer. They worked collectively with the Office of Education to incorporate the Big 5 school emergency guidelines, which are now in effect throughout San Mateo County. They conducted school safety audits with CAL FIRE. They started a mentoring program called the Coyote Society. They assisted with the Youth Summit at Cunha Middle School. They participated in the Every 15 Minutes at Half Moon Bay School. They oversee National Night Out. They conducted presentations on cyberbullying, gang awareness, stranger danger, and many more. And as was presented to the council a few weeks ago, they established 4 neighborhood watch groups. Office of Emergency Services has a new coordinator position assigned to Half Moon Bay EOC. They've assisted with Half Moon Bay Emergency Operations Plan. They've established voice-over warning siren in English and Spanish. They assist with the expansion of the CERT programs and the Drought Task Force. The Homeless Outreach Team. The Sheriff's Office participated in the Homeless Coalition Steering Committee activities and continue to work on the casework meetings. Envision Shelter Network implemented the HOT teams with a caseworker assigned to the city of Half Moon Bay, providing services previously not available in Half Moon Bay to the homeless. At this time, there are 13 homeless currently getting services through this caseworker. Gang Task Force. We continue to work with the Gang Task Force, utilizing our Sheriff's Office Crime Suppression Unit and the Countywide Gang Intelligence Unit, who both supply information and ID high-risk gang members in our community that regularly share the information with our coastside deputies. One of our significant accomplishments I touched on was the Coyote Society. Deputy Sean Chase received an award from the Redwood City Elks Lodge for his work developing and implementing the Coyote Society. The program utilizes students from Pelositas to mentor at-risk youth at Cunha Middle School. 7 of the 8 students mentored to date have improved their GPA, And I think you had the pleasure of listening to some of them speak at the Youth Summit, and they were very impressive. The Sheriff's Office conducted 2 community academies, 2 6-week community academies, 1 in English and 1 in Spanish, where the participants learn such things as patrol techniques, investigations, gang awareness, narcotics investigations, and emergency preparedness. Some of the future plans is we want to make community policing a priority in the city, and by doing that, we're going to set up a community policing school resource office at the Half Moon Bay substation, continue to work with city staff on emergency preparedness in the Half Moon Bay Emergency Operations Center, enhance investigation capabilities by converting the decommissioned jail cells in the substation to a state-of-the-art interview room, and continue to participate in the countywide gang task force. And I'm ready for questions.
Do we have questions or comments to the Lieutenant? Councilman Patridge?
I just have one, and I just want to thank Sheriff Spunks and also you for the continued work that you are doing with the schools, and I think it's paying off. So I really want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilman Kowalczyk?
So thank you for the presentation. Quick comment. You referenced the survey, satisfaction survey.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask when you consider this for next year. So thank you for those results. I'd like you to increase the numbers of the surveys. I think you sent out 30 and we received 9 back.
Yes, sir.
If you could just look at that and look at potentially increasing those numbers, it would be, I think,
Increasing, sending more out?
Yes, so we get more
Okay.
back.
Yes, sir.
So we get a more material sample. It's a good pulse, right? So I think if a few more numbers, I think it would be more telling.
Yes,
and
sir.
Perhaps more credible, but it's very good. I appreciate that. And my full support for emphasis on community policing and growing, the importance of growing a bond with the community in terms of all looking at this as our home and where we live together. I think that is an important part of policing, of law enforcement, and I appreciate those efforts. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you for that report. I know that's a lot been accomplished and you went through it quickly. I just wanted to give you some feedback. I'm still hearing from youth at Cunha how much of an impact that youth summit made for them. I know it's been expanded and it's grown each year. But the words especially of that last speaker, the ex-football player, and the path that he went through and back really resonated with the kids and they remember it. So I still hear that from some of the kids. They hope that that continues and they want to be a part of it. And this was the 8th graders going into the high school. So kudos to you for that. And also for the expanding and helping out with the CERT programs. A lot that is the community emergency response teams. There have been some classes through the years through the fire department, but I know that Office of Emergency Services is taking a lead on a lot of that and expanding the classes and training. So that's great, so we can have all the neighborhoods covered on that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Councilman Alfano?
I agree with what Councilmember Frazier just said. I think what really helped the Youth Summit this time was taking an entire class and having them all participate. I think when we were doing it with the kids volunteering, I'm not sure you got the full participation of everybody you wanted to be there. So by taking an entire class, I think is a really good way to do it. If it means increasing these, whether it's using some of the cops' money or the city helping out, especially with the kids, like you're saying, going on into high school, I think that's a huge help. And I thought it was really interesting when the FBI officer, the female, asked kids about how many have email addresses, how many have their name on them, and so forth. It was interesting how many hands got raised and how many of the kids realized how vulnerable they are with some of the online activities they're doing. It was a great presentation by her. And then the story she told about the young girl back east, again, I think it made a real great impression upon the kids. So if we can do more of these, I think those are very helpful.
Thank you, sir, and thank you to all of you for funding that. I know you funded it again through your COPS grant, and it's our 3rd annual, and it got a little bit better this year, and it's a work in progress, so hopefully every year it'll be a little bit better.
Councilman Kowalczyk?
Yeah, and I want to speak to the elephant in the room.
Yes, sir.
And I know there was a tragedy, not in Half Moon Bay, but certainly within the COSAC community. And to my comments about community policing, I think statistically, response time is quick and satisfaction is high. But of course, there was a terrible situation and still under investigation, and will not ask you to comment. I know that's not appropriate. But in terms of building a sense of community, I know that Moon Ridge is outside Half Moon Bay, but often the deputies who patrol Half Moon Bay often patrol the whole coast side. I just want to express publicly my strong support for close community connections and community policing and community law enforcement so that there's shared views and trust. And having attended some of the sessions where folks from across the coast side shared their concerns and raised their questions, and lots of questions, there's a strong sense of trust is lost and obviously a strong sense to rebuild. And I give you my full support and enthusiasm to rebuild that trust. And I'm sure that's under consideration. And you don't even need to comment. I just want to share that on the record because I think it would be inappropriate to not mention that situation and the importance to rebuild trust in our community. So I wanted to share that.
No, and I thank you. And as the Sheriff's Office representative, I do understand that. And as the Coast Side Lieutenant, I understand that it's on my shoulders, and I can just assure you and I can assure everybody that I will regain that trust. We're still out there. We still have community events planned throughout the summer, movie nights, play streets. I still have a deputy out there who's absolutely beloved, but I know it's going to take a lot more than that, and I can just assure you that it's going to be done. Many of the people that were at the Spanish-speaking community academy that I spoke of were from Moon Ridge. We do have a lot of support out there. This is just a terrible tragedy that we're going to have to come together. We're going to have to heal, but as a community, we will get through it, I assure you.
Thank you, and I know that Lieutenant and I have discussed this at great length, and they've continued on. And Chief Violet, I understand, is going to be coming over here and doing a little more work on the coast. So thank you, Chief Violet, for attending tonight. If you'd like to say a couple words, you're more than welcome. I don't want to lose a lieutenant yet, though. So you're welcome. And then also, I believe you have also another Sheriff's Office representative here this evening.
It's been a while. Which button do I push on this? Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I'm really not prepared to say anything. Lieutenant Muncie did a nice job on the presentation this evening, and I was here only if you had any backup questions on the stats or something like that I helped pull together. I finished my interim assignment in East Palo Alto, as I mentioned the mayor, about 2 weeks ago, and I'll be working a little bit with Lieutenant Muncie and Captain Lisa Williams, who's in Millbrae, part-time for the next few months. So look forward to seeing you around town.
Yeah, welcome back. And I think one of the keys here is response time. Number one, it's excellent. Thank you for that data. And also, let's be careful how we say it, but the crime rate, we're pretty darn lucky for the amount of thousands and thousands of people that pass through our community every day. So I think we're very fortunate, so let's hope we can keep that statistic.
Absolutely. And just the lady that was sitting next to me back here is Natasha Claraspina, who's the manager from Public Safety Communications that you also have a contract with for dispatch services. So she wanted to witness the presentation this evening. So thank you.
And that sure helps with our response time, that contract. So thank you to keep up the good work there. And Lieutenant Muncie, while you're still here, quickly, it's a good thing we didn't send out the comments last week, but I will tell you last Wednesday I participated with the lieutenant in our STEP program, and it's a San Mateo County Situation Traffic Enforcement Program. It's not something that the city woke up one morning and said we're going to put out there, but it was publicized. And I will tell you that I went over to the station with the lieutenant and Sergeant Joe Sheridan in charge, and the men and women that came down to assist us in this STEP program. And they were truly professionals. They were there for the safety of this community. Some of you don't think so out there, but trust me, we have to have a reminder that we are supposed to stop at stop signs. And trust me, I've all kind of rolled through them in my day. That STEP program is funded by the grant from the California Office of Traffic Safety through the National Highway Traffic and Safety. And it's just amazing how many people disrespect the stop signs out there. And I rode around for a little while with the officers, and I thank you for that. And I think as a fair warning, I believe we had 9 last Wednesday, excuse me, and we have 20 tomorrow morning, tomorrow
yeah.
afternoon.
Tomorrow afternoon.
You would like to comment on that?
They'll be here tomorrow from 12:30 to 3, or 12:30 to 3:30. And, you know, their real objective isn't just to give out tickets. Actually, they'd rather not give out tickets. But like any of us, even us in law enforcement, when you're driving down the road and you see a law enforcement officer, you think of what you're doing. How fast are you going? Am I obeying all the traffic signs? So the goal is really to get them out and seen, so everybody starts thinking a little bit more closely on whether they're checking that text, whether they're rolling through the stop sign, what their speed is, and so forth. It's really not a money-generating thing like a lot of people think. It's truly just about traffic safety.
Thank you, and that's so important, and I believe we'll also be having some crosswalk professionals tomorrow working crosswalks too, because the letter of the law and the spirit of the law are kind of tough on when you're trying to make a right turn and everyone's going through the intersection. How do we get through it all? But it still is the law, and hopefully we'll have a better understanding with everyone tomorrow, and just be safe out there and try to respect the traffic laws. So we all have fair warning. So any other comments and questions, Lieutenant?
Well, thanks. I graduated to a lieutenant there. I wanted to say, to lieutenant, me. Cell phone, people talking on cell phones. Have you seen an increase or a decrease?
God, I'd have to look at the stats for that, and I don't have it in front of us, but I think that, you know, more and more people are using the devices and stuff, so they're not doing it as much, but, you know, I see it as much as anybody else just in my private vehicle driving around. It's just scary, and the texting is really what's scary, because people try to hide it. It's almost be better if they held it up and did it, but they don't. They hide it low, and their attention is down, and your attention, you know, going 50 miles an hour just for a second is disrupted, and I guess it's the number one cause of injury crashes these days is the texting or inattention while driving through a device.
I think bicycle pedestrian safety is very important too, because we all see the bicyclists and pedestrians doing what they're doing. And in support of the seniors, I think we have to also look closely at handicap parking violations. There's a lot of abuse out there throughout the country.
Yes, sir.
So if there's no further questions with the lieutenant, I thank you, and I thank Chief Violet for stopping by and our communication experts, and we'll move on with the agenda.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So at this time, we move from streets to sewers, above ground to underground. So we have an opportunity to present to the public and to the council our new Sewer Authority Mid-Coast Manager. To come forward, please, Rob Hopkins and Rick and Allen, you're our representatives on the board, so we'll give you first questions.
Well, first off, I wanted to say thank you to the City Council for giving me the opportunity to introduce myself formally to the community of Half Moon Bay. And in light of that, I wanted to give just a real quick career overview of how I got to where I'm at now. I started my public agency career working for Incline Village up on the north shore of Lake Tahoe, working for a water and wastewater agency there. I worked there for about 4 years. And then I took a job over on the California side for the North Tahoe Public Utility District, which covered Crystal Bay all the way out to Tahoe City. And I worked there as a utility operations manager for about 7 years. And I spent the past 3 years of my career down as a general manager for the city, Big Bear City, California, down outside of San Bernardino in the mountains. And I was responsible for water and wastewater, solid waste collections, recycling, fire and ambulance services at that agency. As of next week, I will have been up here at SAM for about 3 months, and I've had some time to take a look at the infrastructure, and I'd be happy to put together some of my, or present some of my observations on kind of a broad category on what I've seen, where I think we could go, or where I would like to take the organization. First, one thing I would like to make clear is, one of the fortunate things that I've had in my career, I've had an opportunity to look at several different public agencies, and the challenges that SAM is facing are the same challenges to most public agencies throughout California and throughout the entire West. And what that is there's been, if you think about it, there's been a tremendous period of growth happened in the entire West Coast from about the period 1946, right after World War II, up into the mid-'70s, when growth and infrastructure, all things that were going into the ground were brand new. The economies were generally booming. Construction projects were large. They were, all over the place. And then what we had is a period from about 76 until the 2000s, until now, where a lot of the infrastructure that was in place was maintained and operated, but a lot of planning hadn't necessarily been put into place for what do we do next. And a lot of that has resulted in, what they typically call deferred maintenance, which is maybe not quite an accurate way of thinking of it, because the maintenance has been done, and been done very well in Sam's case. But what you have is a lot of aging equipment, things that have run past their useful life. When you're talking about, on equipment, maybe a 15 to 25-year lifespan, and a lot of this equipment's been put in the late 70s, early 80s. And so its useful life has been expended. And so now you look at what do we do going forward, because you're facing a lot of infrastructure that has been basically depreciating or aging for many years over time. And it took 25, 30 years for it to get to this point. Well, it's going to take, to my mind, 15 or 20 years to get fully out of it. And so what I like to work on developing is a 5-year capital plan, which is basically it's your more your immediate need replacements, and then a 20-year plan where you're looking out, where are we going to be and how do we start planning to do our replacements. And the other key component of that is a funding mechanism. And I'm anxious to pick Stuart's brain about some of the ideas he has with his financial background. But creating a funding mechanism and getting buy-in from all the member agencies that allows the larger scale projects to be planned for and carried over from year to year. And I think that if the plan is presented and it's well thought out from Sam's perspective, and that we come up with a good multi-year funding method, that we will be able to make some really serious gains and improvements in this area. So that's my overall vision on or philosophy on how I would plan on taking care of some of the infrastructure issues that I've observed so far. With that, I'd be happy to open up to some questions from all of you.
Thank you, and welcome. Look forward to working with you. Councilman Alfano.
Yes, again, I want to reiterate, we really do appreciate Rob coming on board at SAM. And I think now that Rob's been here for a while, he realizes the challenges that SAM's facing. And even though they're difficult challenges, there are answers. Mm-hmm. And it's really incumbent upon the three agencies working well together. And I think Rick and I have really tried hard to reach across the aisle and say, we're here not as somebody from Half Moon Bay, but somebody on the SAM board that wants to make sure that all the SAM's facilities work properly and we never, ever have any kind of spill into the ocean. That's critical. But it's going to be a challenge, and we've talked about this, but I think once Rob has agreed, we need to relook at the JPA agreement and figure out what's right and what's wrong with somebody from the outside, nail down our capital spending, and then, like you said, the financing. And the financing, and Stuart's talked about this, is set something up so that no current ratepayer gets smacked for any big SAM costs, that the costs are spread out on ratepayers over many years, and the money is consistently coming in to continue to replace things, which sadly SAM doesn't have in place right now. So I think it's a big goal, but I think it is doable, and I wish Rob the best with this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Alf.
So as the other council member on the SAM board, I share Alan's sentiments. When we wear the SAM hat, we represent the coast side and we take the broad view. We don't draw hard lines. We need to really represent the entire community. We take that pretty seriously. But I want to just welcome you publicly and also let the community know that we did a broad recruitment for a general manager at SAM and received many applicants, resumes from all over the country. We narrowed that down, interviewed Rob again, and I'm very pleased that you're in this position, and I'm very looking forward to working together. So you mentioned potentially coming back and giving sort of your perspective on what you've observed. I would welcome that. If you would, I don't want to ask you to commit, but just think about periodically what might work at a reasonable pace. Periodically come back and say, I've toured all the facilities, and here's anecdotally some things I saw, and here's some priorities. And then 3 or 4 months later, whatever the issue of the day is, I think we would really welcome that closer tie and communication. Alan and I bring that information back from SAM, and we have the perspective of the board, and I think you bring a different perspective that's really valuable. And if you would periodically share that with the city council, that would be very valuable.
I'd be more than happy to do that. And it is another one of my observations is that communication, it appears to me, has been sporadic over the years. And some of that, I think, is SAM turnover, perhaps turnover at the various member agencies on boards. I'm not sure. But one of my goals is to improve that communication relationship so that in the hope that all the member agencies can work together towards a common goal, which really is protection of the human health first, the environment second, that's why we're here. That's why we ask for public money and we commit to spend it wisely to protect the environment. And I take that commitment very seriously. That said, I want to get out, and I would be more than happy to come along and give a update sometime in the fall. And one of the other things I intend to start is the budget process much sooner. I'm thinking right around the beginning of the year, so I can start communicating with each agency and getting a feel for each agency's comfort level, and do that early so that the process isn't compressed into the very last weeks of June, which is kind of what I observed this year. So those are two of my, I guess you want to say, near-term goals. So I thank you very much for your support with that.
Thank you. I wish you well finding a place to live also.
Thank you. It's been a challenge.
On the coast side.
Absolutely.
So moving on, thank you. We'll push that button off for me, please.
Absolutely.
We will go on to mayor's announcements and community activities, and all of you can help me along the way. I do have Thursday, July 17th, as fresh as it gets, will be down at the Half Moon Bay Lodge. It's where the growers get together with the chefs and restaurateurs to recognize them for buying as much local product as possible. And that is one. And then the other one is on Thursday the 17th, former mayor, Greatest Generation, which we still have a few around, Al Adravino, will be turning 91. So he probably is the oldest past mayor of Half Moon Bay City. So happy birthday, Nono, on Thursday. And he's still driving. He got his driver's license renewed. So I told him to be careful tomorrow. So any other community activities anyone has to share? If not, we will move on to report out of closed session. We had no closed session. And Tony, I don't know if this is the time you would like to comment with Bruce and Dante and all the staff's work on a recent Coastal Commission ruling, or would you rather wait?
Were you planning on giving an update on that? No, I'm happy to do that right now. It's not the subject matter of your agenda, but in regard to council reports, I think it is significant. There were 2 items on the Coastal Commission's agenda last Friday. One was the approval of the 2011 zoning code updates, which staff, including Dante and Bruce and folks in my office have been working on for the past 3 years, working closely with Coastal Commission staff. Some issues that we disagreed upon, but were able to negotiate through most of the issues, and we'll be bringing back to the council at a future meeting for approval some minor recommended revisions that the Coastal Commission approved. But on the whole, the Coastal Commission approved the 2011 updates, and I understand there are a number of applicants, particularly those with what are called exceptional lots, that have been waiting in the wings for this to move forward with their project. So it was a very important piece of legislation that we were able to successfully get through the Coastal Commission process. So that is significant. Another item of interest to the council is the development project at 320 Church Street was approved by the Coastal Commission. I think it's a small subdivision that has been pending on appeal for the last 3 years. And so after a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, that project has finally been approved. And so we'll be providing some additional construction in Half Moon Bay, hopefully within the next several months. So.
Thank you, and I think we'll, when they come forward, we can thank them again, and maybe the city manager's reports, he'll make a quick comment too. So moving on to city council reports, we could start with Councilman Patridge, please.
Okay, attended the Congestion Management Environmental Quality Committee meeting, and we heard the report on San Mateo County safe routes to schools. And I have to report that Cabrillo School District has been participating. We also heard a report on the active transportation opportunities for reducing traffic congestion. It's a strange kind of thing where they're trying to make congestion less, but the regulations are tougher. So it's kind of like we're really discussing that, trying to get that changed through MTC. And then we reviewed and approved establishing the priority development area parking policies for all the people that have the TDA projects. So their parking requirements are going to be a little bit different. And then we also approved the performance report on Measure M. And then we heard information on the CCAG 2014-15 budget program and fees that were going to be being assessed to the cities. Then I attended the SAM meeting for Councilman Kowalczyk, and I'll let Councilman Alfano make the report. But I must say that I was very happy to see that the budget was reported in 3 different sections like we had approved. So that was a great outcome. But I'll let Ellen go over the rest of the report. Then I attended the OES meeting for Councilman Frazier. And one of the things is that there was a reminder to the members to remember to turn in their conflict of interest forms. Then there was an EMA zone exercise update, and the update was on the drought on Zone 7 in La Honda. They have a serious water shortage problem. As you know, Memorial Park and the YMCA camps are closed for the summer. Redwood Glen was going to be closing down on Monday, the Monday after I had that meeting on Thursday, because of water. And then there was a Public Works mutual aid update and urban plan on cutting back water 10%. So I asked about Pescadero, and they said that Pescadero was not in danger as much as La Honda was. So, but with the farmers, they are. I mean, with the residents, you know, it's not as bad. Then there was a disaster prep day on opening day at the fair, and Chairman Adrian Tissieri thanked all the participants. It was a great success. And then Burlingame Neighborhood Network did a presentation by Kathy Schmidt and Linda Friedland. It was very interesting in how they have the neighborhoods doing the emergency. And it was quite interesting. And I brought back several books, Marina, that I'll give to you so that you'll have it for your files. But they have quite a system for disaster preparedness and awareness in the neighborhoods. And I just wanted to say that my little 12 and under softball team has qualified for the Western Regional Nationals. Poor little things don't have very far to travel. They're going to travel to Roseville in the heat at the end of July. So if you see these young ladies in their uniforms selling tickets, I encourage all of you to buy them. Thanks.
We knew that was coming. At least they're not going to New York. Councilman Kwalchek, are you ready?
Yes, thank you. So first thing to Councilmember Patridge, I want to remind you of my policy. You may recall me purchasing 25 boxes of Girl Scout cookies at a city council meeting. My policy is if a kid in the community approaches me with his fundraiser event, I will commit. So have somebody track me down. But I may try and duck a little bit, but no, I will. I'm happy to support the kids. It's a great thing. I remember that feeling when I was a kid, selling tickets or whatever for Boy Scouts or Little League, and back then you go door to door, and I'd go to 30 houses in Detroit, and then one would say yes, to be like, oh glory, I got one yes out of 30. So I'm happy to be the person to help out.
Thanks.
A few things to report on community activities. So I attended a community sharing meeting regarding the tragedy of Yanira Serrano, and just met with the family and talked with other members of the community, hear their concerns, and also folks from outside the community wanting to understand the larger issues involved and going on. And also I have been in consultation with Senator Jerry Hill on the topic. And we're in touch, in tune, and sort of watching what's going on in that situation. But I want you to know I've been in communication with that. I also attended the meeting where District Attorney Wagstaff gave a presentation on the investigation, specifically what they're doing, the timing it is taking, the thoroughness of the approach. And I want to compliment the mayor for showing true leadership in getting involved and getting our community involved in something that technically is not in our city, but it is in our community. And John, you have done a great effort to bring awareness and to get social services involved and get communication flowing for the tragedy in Moon Ridge, and hosting events in Half Moon Bay and bringing in resources in Half Moon Bay. I know there's been a lot of activity and a lot of resources going to Moon Ridge. I think it was appropriate, responsible, and a sign of true leadership that you took the initiative to make that happen in our city for our community. So I want to thank you for that. The district attorney explained how the investigation would work. It's interesting. Typically, an investigation of this magnitude would be in the order of 12 to 18 months. He is putting his lead investigator was there and also made brief comments. They are making a full press and aggressively investigating the situation, and expect to have a report out, and a report that will be confirmed will be available to the public in full, in print or electronically, after, I think, in early August 8th rings a bell. That date may be wrong, but 2.5 months, much faster than the typical 12 to 18 months. Still, I'm sure we all want to know what that report says and want to know more detail. And even though as fast as that, and I know it's still painful for everybody to endure that wait and endure this whole process, but the speed of that, and that this is the number one priority, I think is the message to the community. It is the highest priority for the district attorney. The other activities I've been involved with, participated in the final information sharing regarding the library planning. I spent time at the farmers market and at the Mercado, hearing from the community. and getting input in the library. And if you were not at our previous meeting, you should get the notes. It's excellent news for our community and our new library, because I also was at the study session for that just prior to this. And a couple more quick things. I was really happy to represent the community and the council at the city's old-fashioned 4th of July parade. Such a great event in our community, just great. And was really happy to do something different this year. I walked along, a car in the parade and was able to greet smiling kids and shake hands. I had a little bit of candy for some of the kids, but really a fun event. And afterward, visited with some folks. There's an after event at the Coastside Adult Day Health Center, and that was also another good positive community event, and I was happy to be involved in that. And the last little update, just so everyone's aware, if you're wondering, I was first in line on Monday morning to pull papers for my planned re-election campaign in the fall. So what's going on? Thank you.
Councilman Alfano?
I'm ready now. So we had our SAM meeting. We already talked about some of the things that are happening there. And one of the things that was very important to us is we want to very clearly define things like maintenance and things like capital projects. So we worked very hard to make sure that the new budget outlines these as separate items. So we have a better understanding of where the money goes for and how we allocate the money. So that was a step in the right direction, getting that clarified, and our staff helped us a lot getting prepared for that. We had a ribbon cutting up in Princeton. I stopped by. It's a new restaurant called Seville. It was very nice, great turnout there. Sharice asked me to cut the ribbon, which I was happy to do, even though it's not Half Moon Bay. And then Supervisor Horsley walked in. She said, "Forget it, you're demoted." And then, as Rick said, there was a community meeting about the Moonridge incident. One of them was at the IDES Hall. There was very good community presentations or participation, excuse me. And I think we really have to give a lot of credit to Dirk Alvarado. He's done an amazing job in helping move things forward in a very difficult time. I never knew Dirk had those skills. He's done a great job. We had the Council of Cities dinner in San Mateo. It was their turn, and they held it at the College of San Mateo. And I haven't been there in years, and some of the new facilities there are gorgeous. I was shocked at how beautiful some of the facilities are there. Amazing. And the speaker that night was a Stanford professor, who's been talking about global warming. And they had a meeting that morning in Foster City. I think, Stuart, you went to that. And they show a map of San Mateo County. And when you look at the projections from possible, low end to high end, it's very scary what could change in this county. I went to the GPAC meeting, the General Advisory Plan Committee group, and I have to tell you, Dante and Bruce were there, and we've got a really good committee. They're really putting a lot of effort in. There were some community members there. This is the basis for our town going for the next 10 years. It's a really important document, and it ends up with the LCP, the Local Coastal Plan. Very important. We had a great thank you dinner with some of our long-term city employees. It was really nice to be with them. Sometimes we don't get a chance to really talk to some of our people, and these are the people who've been around in the city through the hard times and the not so hard times. It was really nice to say thank you to all of them and to their spouses. And as Rick said, the community meeting with DA Wagstaff was amazing. He's a great speaker. And I think he helped the people understand better of what his role is in this investigation. We had a ribbon cutting in town. It was kind of a champagne and pizza thing on Main Street. It's a brand new store called Sprockets Kids, and they focus on kids' clothing from 0 to like 6 or 7 years old. And we also have another store across the street. It's been around, P. Cottontail. So when you hear people say they can't buy retail things in our town, they need to take a look what's on Main Street. There's some really good stores that offer some excellent values. our hope is if they do well, we can see their clothing lines expanded so everybody can save a trip over the hill. And like Rick said, the parade was great. It was a lot of fun. I think it was a huge turnout. The farther you got down Main Street, you got to City Hall, it was wall-to-wall people. So it was a really nice event.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Last night, on behalf of the council, I did go to San Carlos City Council and had thanked them for taking over recreation for us for a few years. They were very appreciative that we'd even acknowledged that, and they were, Councilmember Griselli and Grody were there years ago and had said to me before the meeting that, you know, we've come a long way, and they were happy to help us during those dark times, and glad we're out of it. But I especially thank them for helping with the transition of our recreation services to the Boys and Girls Club operating that. So that was nice to do. And the 4th of July parade was great. We did have, it's interesting to note, we had the kiosk, library kiosk, to get some last comments, but the majority of the people that live in the community were in the parade. And as we talked to people who are on the street, it was amazing to find out how many people do travel from other areas to see our parade. And a lot of them were from Redwood City, and I commented, you have an awesome parade. And they said, yeah, it's a little too awesome and too large. People camp their chairs out 3 days before. We like coming to a good old-fashioned parade, so that was nice to hear. And thank you to the council members who attended meetings while I was on my road trip. And just to make a comment, I do visit city halls and different libraries on my journey. I was camping through western states. But I have to tell you, America truly is beautiful. If you get a chance, you've got to see Yellowstone. It's like a planet to itself. It's absolutely fabulous. The whole journey, except through a section of Nevada, through all those states is just fantastic. And in the news in the last day, I've heard that a road I traveled on within Yellowstone is bubbling up because they have an underground volcano. And it was fascinating to see all these little steam and sulfur pots all around very close to the road, and a section of their roads are closed because it is bubbling up. It's fascinating to see. And just a comment, you were mentioning some grand openings that have been happening, and I want to take an opportunity to thank Bruce Ambo and his staff for building and planning. This year, compared to 2 years ago, we have not heard the complaints and just the frustration of people trying to open a business and get hung up because their sign wasn't right, or they didn't fill out the paperwork correctly, or they need to get a building permit because one bolt was changed. I am so happy all of that's been smoothed over. Not only for not, hearing these people's frustration, but for having them find an easier way to be able to open a business in town. So thank you for all the changes that have been made in that. It's been a vast improvement.
Well, I got a couple reports, but I have to say first, I just want to thank this council for the positive commitments you've made, not only to the city, but the whole coast side. It's not always have been that way in the past, and you guys are out there. Thank you. And I know we're committed to this, and it takes a lot of time and energy, but we're out there, and it shows by the things that we're bringing back to this city. So thank you for that. So I attended the Mercy Housing dedication, and Janie Bono James and Cara Smaldam, Don, they really have brought this senior complex to existence, I guess I want to say. But what a spectacular place it is there. What a spectacular work we have all done for senior housing in this city. It's come a long way. But boy, now with another 114 units, I believe, coming in Mid-Penn, if you look at other cities on this peninsula, they don't have it. We have it. And we go to council meetings and we see these things, and City Council of Cities, let me tell you, I think we're ahead of the game, and thank all of you that have been very involved in this over the years to get that through. 4th of July parade is always a great parade. I think we have a great diverse group of small clubs and families and individuals that participate, and can't thank the Beautification Committee enough for their commitment to continue that parade with some financial assistance. And Cameron and his corner and the Lions with the pancake breakfast. It's just really good old Half Moon Bay down home, and it's good to see the people that care about us there. And so thank you for that. Along with Dirk, we've probably tonight is another meeting at this time for the youth down at Moon Ridge, I believe. It's the 6th meeting we've had, and they're going to continue on. And so it just is a great commitment. And you have to thank the IDS Hall. When we were looking for a facility, called Mel Mello, and right away he said, what do you need? You know, and that's what this city's about, is friendship, fellowship, and participation, and stepping up and getting things done for the betterment of the community and not criticizing everything we try to do forward. So I appreciate them. And then the YMCA committing to turn this building over at a busy night, because they're part of this property management here now. And while I was here, there was families picking up their children, and they were constantly complimenting us on the work the YMCA is doing, and I think our city manager is going to cover that. And if I may back up just a little bit, the dispute resolution of San Mateo County has done amazing work for us all too. And I believe we're a paying member. We have been for many, many years. And boy, this year we're getting our dues back in return, and I know there will be probably other assessments coming forward for the commitment they have made to the community on this unfortunate incident. So we have to thank them. And then I believe with Dirk, I would like to set up when we can to have a little recognition for him coming up very soon here. And I don't believe I have anything else. I know the city manager has a lot. I appreciate the patience you've all had, but you know what? We're doing things, getting things done, and that's what elected officials are supposed to do. So we'll turn it over to you, organizational excellence, or updates to the council, please.
Sure, updates to the council. As you've already mentioned, the Boys and Girls Club has taken over recreation services starting July 1st, and the YMCA is providing our day camp, and that's going very well. We've had a number of kids who are in day camp. In fact, YMCA is bringing some of their kids from San Mateo over to the coast so they can experience what the summer is like on the coast. So it's a nice relationship with the YMCA. We are going to be starting the Highway 1 Trail Roosevelt extension in about 2 weeks. So we're moving forward with that. You've already mentioned that the City Council nomination period opened yesterday. People are taking out their papers. We are going to have another meeting next week here with the Joint City Council Planning Commission meeting to talk about the general plan. We are going to have a skate park meeting at 6 p.m. on July 29th. And there's also going to be on July 29th, the General Plan Advisory Committee meeting. So a lot of meetings are happening, a lot of good things are going on in the community. I'm going to do that quickly so that way we can move on with the longer agenda.
I know we have a big night. How about Coastal Trail Bridge? Brief comment. I believe they're still in the works to try to make it in August. Is that correct?
Still in the works. I am in communications with somebody at the State Department of Parks. They have a preliminary assessment done. They're still waiting for their new interim director to sign off on it. And as soon as they do, they've committed to coming to a council meeting, and I'm still pushing for the August one.
Very good, thank you. I have no cards at this time for public forum. And if not, we will move on to items 1 through 9, I believe, the consent calendar, which is a lot of work in there and a lot of good stuff in there. So if anyone would like to comment on all of that hard work, I see Alex, Dante, and Mo, and a number of people have been involved in this, so don't take it lightly if we move forward on this consent calendar. We do appreciate the tremendous amount of staff involvement and all of the staff that's sitting in the room here tonight. Thank you. I see a couple of them smiling that it's over with, but I know August is coming, and it's a tough month, and some of you are not through yet, but I do appreciate the hard work there. So any comments on the consent calendar?
Quick comment for me, Mr. Mayor. Regarding item number 5, I just want to thank Marina for accepting the responsibility to be the voting delegate at the League of California Cities. I think so we spent the last half hour talking about all the things we do outside of this chambers, of our official role in meetings, and that's just another example of being engaged in the political mechanism of the state, representing our city, and it pays dividends. And one example comes to mind is when the interim city manager mentioned the relationship with the YMCA. That was the backup plan to the backup plan, forged out of doing community work at my role in city council outside of Half Moon Bay, but representing Half Moon Bay. Got to know the director from the YMCA, Peninsula YMCA, and that when other things didn't work out, we were staged and prepared to take action, and things didn't fall through the cracks. So Marina, I just want to acknowledge you and thank you for taking on that added responsibility. Thanks. And if I may, I'm happy to make a motion.
Please.
And with that, I move to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 9.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, there's a lot there. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Alifano?
Yes.
Councilmember Kowalczyk?
Yes.
Councilmember Patridge?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fraser?
Yes.
Mayor Mueller?
Yes, thank you. Now we get the big binder up here. And Dante, please come forward, and Bruce, I believe. While they're getting organized, we can show you here on camera, if he wants to swing back, just some of the work this team has been doing. So, and I know there's more here, and I actually did try to review it as best as possible Sunday afternoon, evening, after working in the pumpkins a little bit. So go ahead, please.
It is a lot of information. Mayor and members of the City Council, it's that time again to submit a plan for how our community will handle our current and future housing needs and submit that to the state, and that is our housing element. Over the last several months, staff has conducted 3 public meetings and responded to a number of questions about housing policies moving forward. We had a housing forum where we invited housing advocates to talk about issues that are relevant to Half Moon Bay. We had a study session with the Planning Commission to talk about the requirements of a housing element, and we also had a public hearing to review and present and recommend the document that you have in front of you tonight. Tonight we have Sophie Martin and Catherine Pan from Diet and Batia, who've been working very hard with staff, the commission, and the community on our housing element. And they're going to walk us through the presentation for the public hearing tonight before we hear comments from the community. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sophie Martin.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I'm Sophie Martin with Diet and Batia Urban and Regional Planners. We're the consulting firm that's assisting you not only with this housing element, but also with the update of your full general plan and local coastal program. So what I have for you this evening is a presentation of the city's draft housing element. This is an opportunity for you to review and comment upon the draft before it is sent to the State Department of Housing and Community Development for the required review period. I want to emphasize that this is not the last time that you will see the housing element. This is merely to get your approval of the draft so that we can do this formal review process. After we do get comments back from HCD, we'll be revising the draft as necessary and then bringing it back to you again for adoption. So what I'll do is start with a brief summary of our background research, going into various aspects of the housing element, the needs, the constraints, the inventory of sites for potential housing development, focus on new programs and amendments to some of your existing programs, and then touch on next steps. Oh, there we go. We're asked to begin the housing element with an assessment of the city's needs, and that involves not just looking at demographic and socioeconomic trends within Half Moon Bay, but also at the housing stock that you have here, its quality, and also the amount that residents are paying for housing, both in mortgages, in rents, and really getting a sense as to whether the housing resources that you have are meeting the needs of the community. We look at things like overpayment, the potential of affordable units that are at risk of conversion to market rate, any substandard conditions in the housing stock, and also the needs specifically of certain special needs groups. Those include the elderly, who you mentioned before, large families, persons with disabilities, the homeless, female heads of households and other single parents, and farm workers, amongst others. I'll touch on a few of our findings. These include first taking a look at our demographics and finding that while Half Moon Bay's population has decreased somewhat since 2000, in recent years, just since the last census, we have seen a slight uptick in the city's population, and ABAG projects even more significant growth through 2040. When we break down the age categories where we do expect to see that growth, the highest amount of growth is in the age category of those aged 55 and older, which does have implications for the housing that is needed to best serve that population. We do also see a decreasing average household size, which corresponds with the trend that we see in an aging population as more children leave home and as households shrink over time. We do also see a substantial need for more affordable housing, as overpayment in Half Moon Bay is a significant issue. Here we're defining overpayment as, with respect to sort of a rule of thumb that we use of a household should generally not be paying more than 30% of its income before taxes towards housing and all housing related costs, such as the cost of utilities. Here in Half Moon Bay, we find that almost 50% of renter households are overpaying and 40% of households overall. So some homeowners as well are overpaying for their housing. Focusing in a little bit more on those special needs groups that I mentioned, we do see the elderly as an increasing percentage of Half Moon Bay's population. Many of them live on a fixed income, so this does also have implications for housing affordability, as many of them may need to transition out of the homes that they've lived in for a long time and may or may not be able to afford housing that better meets their needs. The disabled also often includes a high proportion of the elderly, but there are many others within the community that may have disabilities that affect their housing needs as well. Large families are another issue that HCD asks us specifically to take a look at, as often rental units in particular that are large enough for large families can be difficult to find. And then the homeless, we have seen a bit of an increase in the number of homeless individuals counted in Half Moon Bay. There is a county-wide census of homeless individuals that's conducted every few years or so, and in the 2013 count did find 112 homeless individuals, which was an increase from 2007. And as you know, there are somewhat limited resources for homeless individuals within the city. Next, we take a look at our land and resource inventory for housing. We need to consider the city's inventory of land that could be used for housing construction, as well as the financial resources that are available to support that, as well as the infrastructure on those sites. Financial resources that I mentioned could include grant funding. It could include other funding sources that the city may have, for example, those that you've gained from your in lieu fees, other financial incentives, et cetera. One thing that we hear a lot around the housing element is the topic of the RHNA, the Regional Housing Needs Allocation. And this is the number of housing units that every single jurisdiction within California is asked to demonstrate that they have adequate sites to support. It does not mean that the city of Half Moon Bay actually has to build or provide this amount of housing within the 8-year period, but we must demonstrate that there are sites available that could support that required number of housing units should other entities, developers, for example, come in and want to build it. What we have here is a comparison between this cycle's regional housing needs allocation and the previous cycle's housing needs allocation. And you'll see this is divided up by income category, very low, low, moderate, and above moderate income. And the number of units that your city has to show that it can accommodate has actually decreased somewhat since the last time, from 276 units to 240. Though generally speaking, the share of units within each of the income categories has remained about the same, with some shift. The land inventory that we look for can consist of vacant sites that are zoned residential, vacant sites that are not necessarily zoned residential but could still allow residential development, underutilized residentially zoned sites, and other sites that are not zoned for residential uses but that could be redeveloped through other programmatic actions. What we have to do is take an inventory of these sites and calculate, generally speaking, what the reasonable, realistic capacity for housing might be on them. And what we've done here, and I'm happy to go into this in more detail through questions later on if you'd like, is evaluate which residential zoning districts are most appropriate or most likely to be able to meet the housing needs of each of these income groups, calculated how much housing the sites that are vacant or underutilized could support under these zoning designations, and come up with a total. So what we see when we compare our obligation, that's the RHNA category, to the realistic capacity of units, we have about double the amount of capacity that we need to meet this obligation. And I'd like to point out as well that that all of these sites are zoned R1, R2, R3, or the commercial district, and that we're not actually relying upon potential development of PUDs in order to meet this need. Here again is a map that shows these sites. I apologize, it's a little bit difficult to see on the screen. They're color-coded according to their zoning designation, showing that we do have adequate sites to meet our obligation. And again, while additional development could occur on PUDs during this time period, we are not relying upon development in PUDs in order to meet our designated allocation. Finally, we need to take a look at constraints to housing development, and these are broken into two categories: constraints that are governmental in nature, such as land use controls, improvement requirements, fees, exactions, and so on. Those are categories that the city government has some possibility of actually influencing or controlling. Non-governmental constraints are those that the city has less of an ability to control, and those could include environmental factors, availability of financing for those who are trying to purchase land or purchase homes, land and construction costs, and other market conditions. In Half Moon Bay, you are saddled with a number of pretty significant constraints that, as you've discussed in the past and are all aware of, your location within the coastal zone means that the city does not actually have final land use authority. The Coastal Commission can require lot retirement, require projects to develop at a lesser intensity than applicants would like, and so on. You also have limited water connections available, and housing is not considered to be a priority use for water connections within the coastal zone, which is a significant constraint. We've also heard that PUD zoning requirements have been perceived by many to be a constraint, in that the development of these parcels does require a specific plan. Sites with fragmented ownership are supposed to be developed together, and this can pose a constraint or at least a difficulty to moving plans for these sites forward. Finally, I'd like to focus our attention on the actual housing programs, because these are the policies that implement the potential fixes to these constraints and also address the needs that we've identified. We began with the programs that are included in the previous housing element, reviewed how effective they were, whether they were implemented, what is still appropriate for the city moving forward, and what should change. Programs that were removed included those that the city's already accomplished or that were otherwise determined to be infeasible, ineffective, or redundant. Programs that were added or substantially rewritten are those that, were needed to address new or ongoing housing needs identified, address new or ongoing constraints, streamline the city's approach to implementation, and also ensure compliance with state law. Our approach to amending these existing programs and adding new ones fell into a couple of different categories. First, there are programs where we need to ensure consistency with the current general plan and LCP update, both in process and schedule. We also emphasize leveraging existing services and programs that are operated by the city, operated by the county, or other area nonprofits, so that we're really taking advantage of those resources that are already out there and not being redundant in our efforts. We also want to commit the city to what it can actually realistically accomplish. Again, setting our sights high, but also setting them realistically. And finally, identifying ways for the city to truly have a meaningful impact on addressing housing needs in the community. The amended programs fell into a couple of different categories. First, there are those that are requiring certification by the California Coastal Commission, and this ties directly into what you were discussing earlier on in your meeting. As you know, the city took steps to amend its zoning ordinance, and many of those amendments that you did back in 2011 were direct implementation actions that affected the housing element. You were actually taking action on those programs that you had written into the previous element. However, because of the requirement that they be approved by the Coastal Commission, they had not actually been adopted and gone into place. So you'll see that there are a number of different programs here that are really holdovers from what you had before, and the real action item was continuing to get those through the Coastal Commission. Fortunately, it sounds as though that's moving forward quite well, and we anticipate that those should be resolved shortly. The list goes on. Then there are a number of programs where we took a look at the programs that were in the previous element, and these are areas in which the city did not actually accomplish or implement the recommended programs. For some of these, they're best practices. It's a good thing to do. We recommend it. Others, they really are required by state law, and those are areas in which we really need to emphasize implementation this time. The one that I'll highlight that falls into that category is amending your zoning ordinance to allow emergency shelters by right within one zone, and also making some additional amendments that better define transitional and supportive housing, and also make that definition as one that they are permitted in other residential zones and not subjected to additional constraints that other residential development is not. So this is something where the city really does need to take action, and it's something where we anticipate that as part of the zoning ordinance updates that will be put in place to implement the rest of your general plan update, we can do that at that time. We've also identified a number of areas where the city can increase efficiency with its housing programs. We had identified a number of actions that, while they sounded good and may be helpful, they may not really have been necessary in order for the city to truly meet its goals. Those are things like developing additional administrative procedures manuals, brochures, handbooks, and so on, that in discussions with staff, we felt as though this was creating some busy work for staff, and that really this knowledge and information was already out there. And what we really need to emphasize is just coming up with a more efficient and streamlined way of providing that information without sort of creating extra work. So in general, and there are a number of programs that fall into this category, we're aiming to better leverage the existing materials as well as existing materials and resources from other agencies and organizations, as well as staff time. There we go. We have a few new and substantially revised programs. One of them is making some improvements and enhancements to your below market rate program, defining specifically administrative procedures that'll streamline the processing of those units, and also putting in some provisions to ensure that they remain affordable in perpetuity. Another new program that I think is going to be a really powerful tool for the city moving forward is put in place some direction for use of your affordable housing fund. It's unique in that it is a source of revenue specifically for housing that is entirely within the city's control. It's not coming from grant funding. It's not coming from, other federal programs or anything like that. It's yours, you're generating it, and you can specifically use it to meet those housing needs. Finally, and this really speaks to issues that we heard from the community, not just in the housing element outreach process, but also in other outreach that we've conducted as part of the general plan as a whole, and that is really enforcing or really enhancing the desire for greater mixed-use development, emphasizing strengthening the downtown, greater diversity in housing stock, identifying areas that are appropriate for mixed-use housing, and really ensuring that what we're providing in the future fosters a walkable, livable environment in which services and even jobs are in close proximity to people's homes. This will be able to meet the housing needs, not just of those needing affordable housing, but a whole range of housing types, from seniors to young professionals who you're trying to retain in the community rather than moving elsewhere, and young families. We have a few other programs added that specifically take advantage of the services offered by the county and some of the organizations that participated in our outreach. They were very specific in the services that they offer, and we want to put a nod in to refer members of the Half Moon Bay community to those organizations to use those resources. So as Dante mentioned, we did present this draft housing element to the Planning Commission last week and asked for their review and input. They had a few specific recommendations that I'd also like to bring to your attention this evening. First, they asked that we add a table that directly shows the comparison between the regional housing needs allocation and the capacity of sites. That's the same table that I showed in your presentation here, where we sort of show that demand versus supply comparison. That wasn't in the draft that was included, and we think it's a good idea that it should be. They had a few recommendations for program amendments, one emphasizing that development of guidelines will be underway this year, so that was a matter of adjusting the time frame for that particular program. They also asked that we amend some goals and programs that we had regarding energy conservation to specifically include water conservation as well. Again, something that you've heard a lot about and I think is probably a good idea. Finally, they also made an additional amendment to Program 5-1 to include some stronger language regarding providing incentives for LEED certification of buildings, or if not LEED, then other recognized green building certification programs. That concludes the bulk of my presentation. I'd like to take any questions that you have at this time. You may wish to focus on whether the revisions to the housing programs make sense, meet the housing needs of Half Moon Bay as you understand them, and make sure that this document is responding to those needs and constraints adequately.
Well, I think we'll let you catch your breath. Thank you. Hopefully she has a bottle of water here somewhere, because that was an excellent presentation, and I appreciate it very much. And it's the type of thing that nobody wants to sit and listen and read to, but I think first I would like to thank the Planning Commission for their recommendations, because they really, it's their expertise to help guide us along with these difficult planning issues, and I think that's a good start there. And I will come back to the council, and you know what, if we have any questions of staff, then I will open the public hearing. Any questions of staff at this time? I believe I have to open a public hearing, is that correct? So at this time, I'll open the public hearing. And I know there's a couple experts that have been through a lot with housing and lots and things like that in the audience. If you'd like to fill out a form or just come up and make a couple comments on that presentation, you're more than welcome to. I don't beg you, but I want to give you the opportunity. So if not, yes, sir, come forward. Did you want to make a comment?
I was just going to hand in my
Okay, very good.
I can make a comment.
Make your comment and then turn in your card, please. Bruce will take it. Little button there, green button, please.
Can you hear me? My name is John Callan, and I'm current president of the San Mateo Land Exchange Company, which together with our family has owned properties in the North Wavecrest area for 50 to 100 years. And it today owns approximately several hundred lots within the North Wavecrest area. Since the mid-1970s, residential and visitor-serving uses have been proposed for the North Wavecrest area. And I'm certain that at least some of you remember that in the 1980s, there was a Wavecrest restoration plan which provided for residential uses, visitor serving uses, and commercial uses in that area. That Wavecrest restoration plan was approved by the Half Moon Bay Planning Commission, the Half Moon Bay City Council, the Coastal Conservancy, and the California Coastal Commission. I think it was about 1982, 1984. And I believe that vision is still appropriate for that area, but the draft housing element eliminates housing from North Wavecrest. It's important to note that there's not a lot of land left in Half Moon Bay, but there is a lot of land left over at Wavecrest. Remember, the Wavecrest plan was provided for over 490 acres. Post recently purchased approximately 206 acres. And what remains are many opportunities for consolidation and clustered development. This city, as it grows, will require land. Some of the desired uses that we've heard about at these workshops include mixed-use housing, senior housing, moderate-priced housing, condominium housing for the young, commercial recreation, and visitor serving. Development or growth in open space can and do coexist. For example, the county has always wanted a park at the end of Redondo Beach Road, together with a stairwell going down to the beach. But cars require parking lots. Parks require improvements. And people deserve visitor serving uses consistent with those improvements. I feel a little bit awkward coming here tonight about discussing the housing element, but it seems as though that the draft housing elements is going to drive or influence the upcoming LCP. I don't feel that's appropriate. I feel like I'm jumping the gun here, but I don't feel like I have any alternative. Housing element designations should not drive or influence the LCP. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I don't believe we have any other cards on this. So at this time, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Did we have someone else that wanted to speak? So at this time, council, the public hearing is closed. We have a bug here on the thing.
Thank you.
Yep. And yes, questions to staff and response. Go ahead.
Actually, and to either to staff or the speaker, just wanted to thank you for this very detailed report. I know we have these requirements that we have to meet, and we've talked about it a while ago. My question is, of the 366 acres of land that are identified, I'm having a little trouble trying to figure out where the heck that would be. Can you share with me if this is on the west and the east side of the highway, or primarily on the east side? If you have that amount of detail with you. If not, I can have staff follow up. So I could be throwing you a very specific question, but that's the first one that comes to light to me.
If you'll give me a moment to find the map, I would be happy to answer that for you.
And then maybe staff can help me. On the my second question is for the very low or extremely low income and low income requirements. Does we just opened up the new senior housing, and we have more senior housing at the end of Main Street coming online. That type of housing, does it get included in these numbers?
I can speak to both of your questions now
Okay,
that I've
great, thank
found
you.
the map. Figure 3-1 in the draft housing element, which is on page 3.5, shows the potential housing sites by current zoning. And I would say the majority of the acreage is to the east of Highway 1. There are some scattered sites to the west of Highway 1. As to your second question, The senior housing that you've developed recently counts towards your accomplishments in the previous housing element cycle. The projection period for this one begins in October of 2014. So anything that you build before that time counts towards what you did in the last cycle.
Great, thank you.
And I think if I could just kind of guess on an answer, I think with Cabrillo Highway property and Podesta property, that's a couple pretty large parcels there, acreage-wise, probably 30, 40 acres. Yeah. So I think for the east side of the highway, those are pretty large parcels that, to me, are vacant at this time.
But those are PUDs. Podesta's a PUD.
Oh, thank you for that clarification. Yep. Councilman Kowalczyk.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation and the analysis and work that went into that, and for working with our planning commission. I talked to my planning commissioner, and he had a lot of positive feedback, and we talked extensively about this. So I appreciate all the good work. I also want to thank the speaker and his comments, and my questions are sort of all related to that. I think I just want to be clear, and I know the answer, but I want to ask the question so we get the answer publicly on the purpose of the housing element, and in putting it forward. Does it in any way eliminate any lands from being used for housing? Does it set policy?
It does not eliminate any lands for housing, nor does it propose any land use changes.
Thank you. And I'm glad your answer matched my expectation. Otherwise, I would have been stuck. And so my other comment is, or it may be a question. Let me see how it comes out. If other sites are not included, so it says we have capacity, and once is it such that when you've established that, oh, you have enough capacity to meet your housing element requirements, we don't need to include any additional properties in that. Is that correct?
That is technically correct. Most cities, if they have some additional housing unit capacity, they may choose to include that in their inventory to show that they have the ability to go above and beyond what HCD asks for, but it is not required.
Okay, so we're already at, so I think my assessment is we're at, almost half of realistic capacity in meeting our expectations, so not needing to add additional parcels or other acreage into our housing element, and also just reiterating that the housing element does not set policy or restrict other land use, and that's sort of my biggest concern. I don't want to set a precedent, and I know we're not by doing this, but I want to just make sure that it's abundantly clear.
That is correct. Without adding any sites that are zoned PUD into your inventory, the city can demonstrate enough capacity to support double what HCD asks for. We are not changing any land uses. All of the land uses that are defined in your current general plan and LCP still stand. This is a programmatic document largely, and any land use changes that may be put forward as part of the rest of your general plan update process will ultimately require that we come back to the housing element and update it for consistency afterwards. Even though this element is being updated in advance of the rest of your general plan, that is because of a specific state deadline for updating this part in particular. However, it is still an element of your general plan overall and is required to be consistent with it.
Great, thank you. So because it doesn't set policy, of course, I think it makes sense. I don't want to put any restrictions on our landowners.
So what is does it matter? Legally, I asked that to the city manager because we always have to deal with coastal with HCD, so what happens?
Yes, good question. The housing a component of the local coastal land use plan adopt a coastal program. And so therefore, it does not require certification by the Coastal Commission. On the other hand, it has to be integrated with the existing general plan program. So it's influenced by that, and the Coastal Commission can submit comments, but it's not a document that
I would say, they did comment on the last time and that it was okay. But HD had some problems with it. Okay. The one question I have is, and I think everybody on this council knows this is a true statement, and I'm not sure how we correct it or if we can even correct it as a city, is the overpayment. It's outright paying for rent in this community for families. It's like you say, we're paying more than double of the income of these people that are renting. So does the city have any kind of way to correct that, or it's just whatever the property says, huh?
Typically, it's market. So the way that some cities address it is they have subsidies that they give, but it's really market-driven.
As for us to do the market thing is, do we look at rezoning some of these properties to because the only area that has that is where I live, and I'm the only single-family house in there. It's changed after I built. So, but there isn't enough space, and we need more of that. So that we can help that market, by providing more ability to build those kind of houses.
Good point.
Yeah, and I think a follow-up to that, no matter where you look to enforce growth control measures, all you're doing is pressing the market out there. Let's be realistic about it. And if you also look at the Bay Area, you look at the peninsula, there's nowhere else for land but the coast side. But you are restricted on a number of issues there. So I think you have to be very careful out there. And there are hookups out there that could be utilized for some of these important segments of our society. But it's going to take some time, and the Coastal Commission is going to have to agree that these changes move forward. Any other comments or questions to staff? I think what their recommendation is that we review and consider preliminary draft housing element. Requires a motion, staff? I believe so.
I'll make a motion that recommend that the Planning Commission review and consider the preliminary draft housing element in attachment 1, input for any modifications of the element, and City Council for submittal to the State Department of Community Development based upon the Planning Commission resolution in attachment 2.
Second.
And the motion is...
I'm sorry, just a correction. I believe that was the Planning Commission staff report. What we're looking at is approving the attached resolution to the City Council meeting, which includes everything that was previously mentioned.
So maybe we'll get her to seconder and the motion maker to rescind the motion and start a new motion. How's that sound?
That's what happens when you have those technical things instead of paper in front of you.
Don't pick on the motion maker here.
It looked exactly as I flipped forward too much.
Okay, so
I will rescind.
we have rescinded that motion.
I will rescind and recommend to review and consider the preliminary draft housing element and adopt the attached resolution authorizing staff to submit the document to the State Department of Housing and Community Development for a mandatory review of the housing element.
Now I'll second
it. So it's been moved and seconded. Do we have complete clarification on that motion, staff? Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Alifano?
Yes.
Councilmember Kowalczyk?
Yes.
Councilmember Patridge?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fraser?
Yes.
Mayor Mueller?
Yes, and thank you. And we don't take this lightly. I mean, there was a tremendous amount of work by all of you. Again, it's just true professionalism by you and our consultants, so I can't thank you enough for getting us to this point here.
And also, Bruce Ambo did a lot of work in his staff with passing this, so thanks goes out to him too.
And I believe, as Vice Mayor mentioned earlier, comments from the public have been greatly reduced by the professionalism that the staff and advisors have been shown. So thank you very much, and thank you for your comments tonight, all of you. So moving on to the next item on the agenda. Again, is another public hearing on item 11, I believe, right?
Yes. If you want to make this really quick, these are the same, we're not raising rates for sewer.
Right, Rob went home. This one's pretty simple. Do we need to have further discussion on it, or our financial advisor at your, Scott, you want to go ahead and make staff presentation, then we'll go for the hearing?
I can do that. I did have a couple of things to mention that are new this year. As you mentioned, there is no increase, and we use the same rate per cubic foot, and so this year the total revenue generated is $4.8 million. And a couple of other things new this year. We contracted with an outside firm, and this was really, as just mentioned, a great use of resources and leveraging of technology from an operations and staff work point of view. This allowed us a greater level of automation and accuracy, and we're just delighted with the product. So it reduced staff time, and now we have robust reporting available to us for research as well as any questions. So with that, staff recommends that in addition to the public hearing, that council adopt the City of Half Moon Bay sewer service charges for fiscal year 14-15, and authorize the county controller to place this charge on the assessment.
Any questions of staff? Otherwise, I'll open the public hearing. I see no comments at this time. I will close the public hearing. Any comments from council? If not, I'll entertain a motion. And as interim finance director just commented earlier on our agenda, the consent agenda, we approved another true professional to help us in this sewer authority work. And so I think we've made great strides and continue to make great strides with this professional that's going to be assisting us in the future here. So motion, please.
I would make a motion that we adopt a resolution approving the fiscal year 14-15 sewer service charges. We direct staff to file the assessment roll and authorize the county controller to place the assessment charge on the County of San Mateo property tax roll.
I'll second.
And just a quick comment, I think if you look at the news releases throughout San Mateo County, we probably are the only city to not raise the sewer rate. So public, give us a little credit there. Thank you. If not, we'll have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Alifano?
Yes.
Councilmember Kowalczyk?
Yes.
Councilmember Patridge?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fraser?
Yes.
Mayor Mueller?
Yes, so ordered. Moving on to item 12.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Mueller, members of the City Council. The item before you is the introduction of an ordinance that would give effect to the extension of, and this would give effect to the action that you took on June 3rd to place that 3-year extension measure on the ballot for November of this year. Unless and until the voters approve the 3-year extension, this ordinance would not go into effect. And I'm happy to answer any questions or respond to comments.
I know we've questioned staff and great discussions on this at previous meetings. If there's no question of staff at this time, I'll open the public hearing. No comments from the council for direction.
I would move that we introduce an ordinance amending Chapter 3.10 of the Half Moon Bay Municipal Code in a transaction and use tax.
Since we had a great deal of discussion, I will.
Okay. And comment, please.
even though we agreed to the discussion, of course, we can always have more. I just want to, I'm going to support this item, but it's important, if you weren't here at the 5 o'clock session, it's important that the public is aware that we gave directions to staff to pursue something that is pretty unprecedented, especially given for you're facing financial insolvency, and now we are taking action to substantially fund a new library using in large part to the Measure J funds. And Chanel discussed at the previous meeting was because a lot of visitors to the community contribute to that, those costs and not put the full burden parcels on parcels. Important comment, so thank you.
Very important. I think all the supporters that are supporters of the library were Qualkin and Alifano here a few years ago to pursue this with all of us, which we all had doubts about it, but I think it was the proper move, and I think it's the voters understand the importance of where we are committing these future funds. So if not, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Alifano?
Yes.
Councilmember Kowalczyk?
Yes.
Councilmember Patridge?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fraser?
Yes.
Mayor Mueller?
Yes, so ordered. Thank you. Moving on to item 13, and this has been a great improvement over the years, to say the least. And it looks like some of the streets that we were all pushing for to get recognized in there. And I believe it's Dante and a new TV series, Dante and Mo, out there protecting our streets.
That does sound like a good act. Mayor and members of the City Council, the item before you is a plan for street rehabilitation that identifies a strategy to rehabilitate the remaining streets in the city system. So over the last 3 years, the city has rehabilitated 17 out of the 27 miles of streets. There are about 3 miles of the remaining 10 miles that require no immediate repair, and they're listed in your report, streets like Kelly, Grove, Casa Del Mar. And there's about 0.5 miles of streets that have extensive reconstruction needs, and we'll talk a little bit about that later in this presentation. So this report deals with those 6.5 miles that need repair, and we are going to be recommending 3 strategies or basic methods for accomplishing the goals. So if you thought about strategies for rehabilitation of streets in terms of basketball, you would have your layup, which is very easy. You would have your free throw, which is mid-range, and then you have your three-pointer. So the slurry seal is really kind of the layup. It's the lowest cost. It can be used on streets that don't require a lot of repair. It's a coat of oil and sand mixture, and the life expectancy of that coat is about 5 to 7 years. The free throw, which is the asphalt rubber cape seal, which we're going to be talking a little bit more about tonight, and we're recommending, is the rubber and rock mixture, and that's for the streets that are kind of in between. They require a little bit more work than just the slurry seal, but they don't quite require full reconstruction or overlay. And it adds about 10 years of life to a street. The three-pointer or the long shot would be the asphalt concrete overlay, and those are for the streets that cannot be repaired using any other method. So it's really starting again, reconstructing the street, and with maintenance, it can be expected to last about 20 years. So this is a typical slurry street or a candidate for slurry seal. The goal, again, will be to improve the existing surface and extend the pavement life of the street. And I think this is Myrtle. And in your report, we have listed the streets that are recommended for slurry seal treatment. The next is, this is a typical street that would be a candidate for rubber cape seal, and I think this is Seymour. Again, we'd be improving the existing surface and extending the pavement life. The process is less expensive than the overlay and reconstructing the entire street, and it lasts longer than the slurry seal. So the savings that would be generated by doing this is the initial cost would be a little bit more, but in the end, it wouldn't be as much as the overlay. And staff has done some research to try to identify different communities that use this method, and there are probably a dozen or so communities that use it: Santa Cruz, Fremont, Antioch, Redwood City, Fairfield. So quite a number of cities use this method, and it seems to have lasted. And this is kind of a before and after. You see the street before, and this is another community. This is not Half Moon Bay, but this is a community that uses the rubber cape seal, and they were able to repair some of the alligator cracking and things that occur through wear of a street with the rubber cape seal. And these are the streets, and as identified in your report, that are candidates for the rubber cape seal. These are more candidates. Last is the three-pointer, and this is Washington, and this is the asphalt concrete overlay, and what it requires replode, it requires fixing any structural deficiencies. You're practically, in some cases, starting the road over again, and this is obviously the highest cost for repair. And so there are several streets that are listed in your report that are candidates for concrete overlays. What we did with this report, for the most part, the effort was put into restoring city-maintained streets without improvements like widening and sidewalks and drainage. However, there are some existing deficiencies that while we're doing some of the treatment, the control, traffic control in some of the street. So staff will address those when and where possible and that into the scope of work. The report, however, does not address several streets that may be scope of repair. And there are several streets in the city that are in our circulation system. There are issues or questions about ownership. There are drainage issues. There may be other owners and don't want certain improvements. The policy for the city has been to do those certain improvements. What we're recommending is staff to return to the city council in the future to discuss a strategy for addressing streets, because we have to get support from, like I said, from the areas. There has to be a strategy and funding. These are big items in a lot of cases. So we'd like to come back with an individual strategy to address those. And this is a typical street for reconstruction. This is Venice. We'd like to come back and talk to the city council about that. So our analysis, the remaining streets, 6.5 miles of remaining streets for the $2 million that is already budgeted in the 14-15 fiscal year. We had anticipated that we would come back and complete the streets over a number of years, but with the asphalt, rubber asphalt, some money, and we'll be able to complete the design and construction in 2 years with the $2 million that is already budgeted. So the 2-year schedule includes construction, design construction. There isn't a lot of confusion and unnecessary turn. After the major work is done, staff has recommended $1,000 per year for maintenance. And that will be enough to periodically keep our streets so we don't have to come in and do these wholesale improvements and overlay. And staff additionally would perform assessment periodically to ensure that we're on top of the roadway conditions. So tonight, we ask that you approve the street rehab priority report and authorize staff to proceed with the design and construction. I'm happy to answer any questions. We also have our city engineer, Mo Sharma, who's here in the audience, who can answer questions also. Thank you.
Any questions, Vice Mayor?
Great stuff, great report. Thank you. That's captured everything that we wanted and what the public has requested, especially with regards to those really, really bad streets. I'm glad we found some opportunities and dedicated funds for this. So if there are no questions from council, okay.
I just have one question. Dante, you're saying that you only need $300,000 per year for maintenance. Are you sure that's enough money? I would like to see us give more money. I just don't want us to ever get into the shape that we're in now. Right. So I just want to make sure that we have enough to do that maintenance that keeps us above ground and not have the problems that we're having right now.
Perhaps I could add something to that. So that's the current estimate, about $300,000 per year for routine maintenance. But we should also kind of remember that there are many deficient streets. There are some streets which need major drainage improvements. We have like Venice Drive going to beach. A lot of tourist visitors use that, but it's unimproved. We need to improve that. So we still need more funding for improvements. So this is just routine maintenance, $300,000.
And so staff's thought with that would be to create capital projects and include that in our CIP each year for the streets that need extensive repair. But for general maintenance, ongoing maintenance, we believe that $300,000 would do the trick.
All right, thank you.
And just to clarify, that's for the streets that are surrounding residential areas, not past, like he mentioned, Venice Boulevard. All the streets that have residents around them.
Yes.
Okay.
If no further questions, I entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that the City Council approve the street assessment priority report and authorize the city manager to proceed with the design improvements as identified in the report.
I'll second. Any further questions? If not, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Alifano?
Yes.
Councilmember Kowalczyk?
Yes.
Councilmember Patridge?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fraser?
Yes.
Mayor Mueller?
Yes, so ordered. We better get through this meeting soon. Councilman Alifano's losing it on us here.
I will do sign language.
We'll move on to item 14 at this time, and I guess Dante is still...
Let me start off.
Or Stuart, please.
Let me start off.
Yes.
And recognizing how late we're getting, we do have a staff report that we can give you regarding the formation of the Main Street Bridge Community Advisory Group. But this was an idea that Councilmember Alifano brought to the City Council at the last meeting. In the staff report, we have a number of ideas concerning the proposed membership of the committee, as well as some of the ideas and qualifications and all the other kinds of things and what they would be doing. But what may make more sense is maybe for the City Council to appoint a subcommittee to work with staff to really define exactly what the qualifications should be, what the membership makeup should be, what the term should be, and what their objectives are. And that might, as opposed to going through at this hour of a lengthier presentation, that may be a suggestion for the City Council.
I think that's a good suggestion. We do have one card. We will let him speak, but we will have Jerry Steinberg come forward to speak on item 14. and then we'll go ahead and make that decision after the public comment.
Jerry Steinberg, 591 Terrace Avenue, Half Moon Bay. First, I'd like to thank Dante Hall and our development manager and Stuart Schillinger, our city manager, for accepting comments on the Half Moon Bay Bridge. They actually reached out and asked for comments, and we've been working with Dante directly, and what I'd like to do is essentially, this is more like planting the seed. Just move over this.
Yeah, just hand it to staff, and that's all at this time. Thank you.
What it is it's an article. We've talked to the Caltrans District 4, District 7. We talked to the people that are directly in charge of maintenance of the bridges. The article will state that. And the person who investigated our particular bridge and who recommended that it could accept all legal loads. What the article really, the kind of the seed I just wanted to plant was, just like was discussed before about deferred maintenance, about definitions or costs. There are two definitions that have seemed to kind of bothered us for a long time. Those are the functionally obsolete and the structurally deficient. And as you'll see in the article, it's not an unusual thing for people to misunderstand what those mean. The obsolete just means that the bridge was designed to different standards, and the structurally deficient has nothing to do with safety. It just means that there's certain repairs that have to be done. So I'd appreciate it if you looked over those. And I'm looking forward to, I think it's a great idea that Alfano had on having a committee to be able to review some of these things on the Half Moon Bay Bridge. Thank you.
Thank you. I think as we've, staff recommended that Councilman Alfano, if you want to kind of get a little subcommittee going here and the next couple of months, and I'll let you comment, sir. Yeah, August is pretty full right now, and so hopefully September, October, we can come back with some guidelines, but in the meantime,
I'd like to add.
Okay, I'll make that appointment here in a minute, but first we got a comment here from Councilman Kowalczyk.
Fully respect Vice Mayor Frazier. I was actually going to volunteer to be in the committee, but I would defer to that. That's fine by me. Maybe
I make the appointment. Who's bigger and stronger here? You know what I mean? Or, I think, you know, I really believe that you two have been very involved in the Main Street Bridge, and I think if you're interested in trying to put together some type of committee, then I'm willing to appoint yourself and Councilman Kowalczyk. And never disrespect for the Vice Mayor's got plenty to do because she's been covering for me at a number of meetings, as you could see. So I think that's the guidance we're giving Interim City Manager Stewart, so thank you for the assistance there. So now we will move on to another committee here for item 15, I believe it is, right? Did I lose something here? Yes. And what we're talking about here, I guess, is strictly not downtown signage, right? Help me along here, staff, because you guys... Yeah, not wayfinding. It's strictly the future of how do we announce our
These are the
wonderful
gateway
city.
signs, not the wayfaring signs that you already looked at. This would be a committee for gateway signs that we had, that this council budgeted money for in the 14-15 fiscal year.
Great. So I think we can go ahead and I know Vice Mayor has been have been getting a lot of feedback over her career here at the City Council on signage. So if she would like to handle that, and You know, I believe with the lifelong history I have in Half Moon Bay, I'd be willing to sit on that with the vice mayor and myself. So, comment here? Yes, sir, Kowalczyk.
By the way, I love when people refer to me by last name. That's awesome.
Sorry,
No problem, Mueller. So I'm confused by this staff report. I got a question. So is this item intended to be the project that we put forth for a gateway for the community? Because it does not read that. It doesn't read that way, right? It's a signage system which references wayfinding and coming up with standards and vehicular and pedestrian wayfinding and a wayfinding system and reducing visual clutter. So that is not a gateway in my estimation. So could somebody please clarify that? Because that's different.
So what the staff report refers to is actually an entire system. What a lot of cities look at when they do branding, they look at signage that's consistent, they look at design style, design concepts. And so the intent is to have a system that includes things like gateways, directional signage. There may be some informational kiosks, maybe in the downtown area. There may be pedestrian directional signs and signage to different destinations within Half Moon Bay.
So the intent is to define the system, if you will, the overall architecture, as well as design a gateway for the community. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then I have one final comment, which is I think we're setting up a subcommittee, but the comment is references this committee may involve the advisory committee may involve different parts of our community, which is great, and two representatives of city businesses. This specifically references two representatives of downtown businesses. I think we should relax that. If you want to be specific, require one downtown merchant, which I think is totally appropriate, or two, but also a business owner that is not necessarily a downtown merchant, because I think there's a broad interest across the community, and I want to make sure both are represented.
Yeah, because if you look at that closely, you take North Main Street, Hasek Hardware, and New Leaf, and all those are very valuable assets to our community, and also our other shopping centers. So I think we could agree to generalize that downtown word there, if that meets approval here.
I'd recommend maybe we just need one person from beautification, maybe three merchants.
The subcommittee decides that.
Yes, yeah, the vice mayor suggested that the subcommittee would come up with the membership advisory numbers. How's that sound? And we could visit and talk to a few people and see how they're comfortable with that, if that's okay with staff.
I agree, because we always neglect the other shopping areas. I've said that all along. We need to recognize the other places.
So the appointment process, I don't think we need a motion, do we, to appoint?
Well, we need who are going to be the two representatives from City Council.
Sure, the mayor and vice mayor at this time.
And I think that's all we would need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, we don't take it lightly. There's a lot of work that goes into this, but hopefully we can come up with something that'll please everybody, which will be a challenge. Don't laugh. I went to Brisbane the other day, and let me tell you, there's signs here and there, but I wasn't sure where I was going.
Don't criticize.
No, I won't pick up Brisbane.
I'm a numbers person. I'm not the sign person.
That's right. So now our next item, and thank you for your patience, all of you, with the uniform and the badges and all those things. And Michelle, thank you for riding it out with us here. So it's been a lengthy evening, but this is a busy agenda night. So we'll go on to item 16, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. We'll be quick. We have a number of slides, but we'll get through them as fast as we can. What we want to do is just introduce the emergency operation plan. We've been working on this plan since January, and with this plan, and I know over the years there's been several emergency operations plan, what this plan does is conforms to the county's emergency operations plan. And it will allow us to be able to respond to emergencies, assign tasks, provide specific policies and procedures, and coordination of planning efforts. Thank you. Sorry about that. So tonight, with the presentation, I have McKenna. She's our intern. She's the one who put together this beautiful presentation. And this is her first time coming to a city council meeting. So welcome, McKenna, to the city. We will also have Nick Gattuso, who has participated in developing this plan. We also have Larry from Public Works, who has been part of the planning committee, as well as Dave Richards, Steve Mahaley from OES is also on the committee, as well as Chief Paul Cole from the Fire District.
And I think, excuse me for interrupting, but our volunteers are always there when we need them, and thank you very much. And I recognize you back there. I appreciate your time and energy and your expertise in this plan. So go ahead. I apologize for interrupting there quickly.
Perfect. Okay, so let's go ahead. As I mentioned before, this plan conforms to the county's EOP plan. The last plan that the city adopted was in 2010. And so, Nick, do you want to go ahead and?
The plan aligns the 4 phases of emergency management. I tend to think of the first 2 and the second 2 kind of going together: mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. Mitigation and preparedness, like I said, they kind of blend, because seismically retrofitting a building or trimming the trees around a power line are mitigation techniques. And preparedness, of course, is getting the community ready, as many people as possible, to take care of themselves, because emergency responders will be overwhelmed. Response, what do we actually do when the disaster strikes? We activate the EOC, and in the plan we have our annexes, functional annexes, hazard-specific annexes. Late this afternoon, we received 77 pages of section-specific checklists that came in from my colleagues at OES, specifically for the Coast Side Plan. You haven't had a chance to see those yet. That's entertaining reading, very light reading there. And of course, recovery. What do we do afterwards? There are immediate recoveries that we need to do, and we'll talk about that a little bit in another slide, and longer term as well. Operations. What is the concept of operations? Anything that requires the activation of the EOC or the use of the emergency operations plan is going to be, by nature, a multi-jurisdictional event. And that means that you're going to be getting a lot of help from outside, or outside folks may need our help as well. Different jurisdictions need to be prepared for this in advance, which is the whole purpose of having an emergency operations plan that conforms with the county and the other jurisdictions within the county. And this could take a long time, but I promised I would keep these things brief in the interests of time.
The EOP describes how efforts are to be coordinated at the EOP between the various agencies. The staff is comprised of 4 main functional sections. Each one has a section chief, and additional positions are added if activated. Who does what? So basically, it's the job of management to decide, operations to do, planning to think, logistics to get, and finance to pay. But to elaborate on that a little bit more, for operations, like I said, they do, and they have the responsibility for all tactical operations, including implementing the incident action plan. For planning, part of their job to think is to develop the incident action plan. As I mentioned, logistics, their job is to get, and they're responsible for support needs such as those listed. That's the list I was referring to. And finance, they pay as well as they take care of all financial matters and collecting and maintaining all records.
Mutual aid, as I said, any event that requires the activation of the EOC is going to be a mutual aid event by definition. And the way the system works is that the responders in the field will call to the city activating the EOC will call to the operational area, which in our case is the county. The EOC at the county will also be activated as a result. And from that point, we go up to the region if we need additional assistance that we can't get locally within our county. And from the region goes to the state, and from the state goes to the federal government. And this is obviously a geometrically increasing circle of logistics should we need such a thing. But you will get what you need eventually if we follow this plan. Continuity of government. Things don't stop because we have a disaster. The city functions have to go on. And of course, the number one function of government is to protect the citizens that they're responsible for, which is the whole idea of this thing. And we have to see it through preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation. And nobody is going to come in and take over for you. You're still responsible for your city's functioning, but you certainly will get help and assistance, and you can delegate some of those tasks if you would like to do that. Recovery considerations, of course, we have immediate things. I'll actually kind of go into the next slide a little bit more. We need immediate things. First aid, of course, people need food, some need shelter. We need to tend to those immediate medical needs, things like that. Once that's out of the way, we have short-term and long-term recovery. And again, some of those things are utility restoration, power, electric, mental health services. One of the things we don't think about really during these events is people can be horribly traumatized. It's PTSD really, depending on the event. And there's a need for that to be dealt with, and it is handled in our plan. Debris removal, cleanup operations can begin fairly quickly depending on what the event is, and that's taken into account. And of course, long-term, what mitigation did we not do or could we do better to help prevent bad outcomes in the next disaster? And you know, they're always coming eventually. Local economy needs to get brought back up to pre-disaster levels, and there's a lot of work involved in that. Buildings need to be inspected and declared either unfit or safe for habitation after, especially an earthquake type of an event, which is very likely for us. And that's just learning the lessons that we had from that event are going to help us. The EOP is an evolving document. There are parts of it that we haven't completely finished yet because they're never really finished. They're always being updated and improved upon. So there are more documents on the way.
Okay, so as I mentioned, we've been working on this draft. We've had probably 5 edits, and we finally distributed this draft to staff and to council to take a look at early June. And our goal for this plan is to be able to effectively respond to any emergency. And to be able to do that, that means that we need to coordinate events, trainings, drills, and so that we're ready. And we have some events that are scheduled and working as a team. Because this is a coast-side emergency operation plan, it's not just training city staff, it's bringing in our partners and the special districts and the folks up and down the coast so that we are really providing that mutual aid, and we're all on the same page. And so we're bringing the coast along with us. And we will be sending out flyers for the training dates, and we're working out all those details behind the scenes. So next step that we're going to do is we're going to present this emergency operation plan to the KEEP, the Coastside Emergency Action Program, August 1st. And to get some input from communities. Nick has already distributed the draft to a lot of the partner agencies and nonprofit agencies. And then we will submit it to the San Mateo County Emergency Managers Association in August, and hopefully bring it back to you for adoption September after we've received additional comments, and have it be adopted by the county as well. And are there any questions?
Any questions? Councilman Patridge? You're okay.
After attending the OES meeting, I'm happy to see that Half Moon Bay's finally got a plan.
Well, I think, and you clarified it, I was going to specifically ask that because we have some of our staff live in La Honda, some live in El Granada, some live in Montera. This facility is for the whole coast side. And I think that's important for us to remember that when we went out there to develop this process with this building, at least it's for the whole coast side. It's not just for selfishness of Half Moon Bay. So thank you for that. And I think it's so important because the unexpected is just the thing that's always out there that keeps all of first responders awake at night trying to figure out, you know, what the unexpected is. And I can tell you from a personal experience, which I'll never forget, I was at a meeting in St. Louis with the administrator of US EPA, Mr. Johnson, when Katrina hit. And his staff was on his knees with the Blackberries in those days. I'm sure it's an iPhone now. But no marketing here tonight. But just the emotions of what was going through and how did they communicate and try to get information through. But in conclusion, when we had a follow-up meetings, months passed and years passed, and it's almost kind of some of the stuff we talked about earlier about our housing element. Trust me, when there's a disaster, you kind of do the Catholic thing and give them general absolution and dump refrigerators and dump whatever you have to do, but just provide safety for the people. And I know some incidents, disasters, that has not worked, but at least we're preparing for the unexpected, so I thank you for that. Any other questions? Yes, Councilman Alfon.
I know we talked about the Emergency Medical Reserve Corps. Has that been resolved at all at this point?
The Medical Reserve Corps is not officially disbanded, which was something that we were facing a couple of months ago. We're working on something called the Coastside Emergency Corps, where I think I made this presentation, we're dividing the coast into 3 zones, and each one will contain a ham radio element, a CERT element, and a medical reserve element. The details of how that's going to look are still being worked out, but there is progress being made on that front, and the people that have been serving on the MRC are still there. They still have their equipment. The trailer is still at the firehouse, and Dr. Klass was present at Rock the Block with the trailer, flying the MRC colors, which I took to be a very positive sign, because we certainly do not want to lose them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, I don't think there's any other questions other than total support for this plan. You've introduced it. You'll present it to the rest of the county and to the rest of the communities out here. So I appreciate it very much. And to our intern there, this is your first meeting, and sometimes you have to sit through a long meeting to get your agenda item. We apologize for that, but at least we're moving forward. And I want to remind our La Honda and Pescadero and Montera, Moss Beach, and El Granada people that we're all in this together. And Nick, I know you've been working in the South Coast a lot down there, and thank you. And I know Lieutenant Muncie and his officers have been also working up and down the coast for all of us. So thank you very much. Yeah, one more comment?
On the page where it shows agency and department sign-offs, you know, the city, the county, the Board of Soups, et cetera, shouldn't all the other agencies on the coast, like SAM, Montero Water, all of them be part of this? So if there's an emergency, they know the phone numbers, they know who the contacts are?
They are definitely a part of it, and actually that sign-off page was supposed to, in fact, has been removed from the current version because we have found that those are really not required for this to be signed off. Nevertheless, those folks will be part of this plan, and they are going to receive copies, and they're going to come to trainings and so forth. So everyone that could possibly be involved in a disaster on the coast side will be included in the distribution of the plan.
Thank you, and I don't think you need any other guidance. Is that correct, Interim City Manager? If not, we will move on to that one we've been looking for all evening since 5 o'clock this afternoon, or 4:30. Item 17.
This is the one I know everybody's been waiting for.
I think this is pretty self-explanatory, right?
It is self-explanatory. We do have this is another presentation that we can give you if you would like, but basic idea is when you started opening up the building, the dry rot was worse than we had anticipated. And in order to fix the building, we needed to make sure it got done so it was safe for the kids and for everybody who uses the building. It's basically one of those things that until you open the wall, you're never quite sure what you're going to find. If you would like, Alex can go through his presentation, or if you'd like to just expedite it, that's fine with me.
I would move that we adopt the resolution approving amendment to FY 2013-14 annual budget of the City of Half Moon Bay to complete the dry rot repairs to Adcott Community Senior Center. Sorry, Alex, you had to sit there.
Second.
And I'll have discussion. I think the pictures say a lot of it, but I just think it just goes to show you that when you defer maintenance, you do end up with problems. And sometimes when you open up stuff, it's worse than you thought. I mean, you look at a couple of buildings we've had here on the coast. IDS Hall was one big one. They thought they were just going to fix a back corner, and they ended up redoing a whole wall and a stage. I know our friends Steve Barber at Half Moon Bay Inn, when you open something up, it could become much greater than you think it is, and that was definitely the case here in this building.
Councilman Walczak.
So I know we all want to get out of here, but just if we could go to slide 2, just the numbers, just for the community's sake. It's so the repairs to the building were needed, right? Obviously, I want the numbers. Yeah, thank you. So I just want to go through this for anybody watching and for who is going to review the minutes. So we budgeted $115,000 for repairs, and we had estimates taken, but you never really know until you open it up. Is that correct?
That is correct. So once we opened up the skin of this building, if you look all over, the entire building is completely dry rotted out. And Larry's here, and he can go play by play for you of all the issues. And so this is our only community center on the coast side. So
totally agree. And now there's even greater use of this community center for the youth programs, the Boys and Girls Club, YMCA. So I understand that. And then the overage is another almost $70,000. So it's pretty heavy overage, but not unreasonable. Is that correct in terms of doing these sorts of things?
Shoot over to Larry.
Well, as we all discussed, opening this place up, it just turned into more, even though the original bid was $70,000, give or take a few. We budgeted $115 because we knew when we opened this building up, it was going to get more extensive. And unfortunately, it got above our estimate of more extensive. I still have 3 soft spots in the roof to fix, and I have a gutter system to put on. That is what the $70,000 is for. I've done all the other repairs, but I need that extra money to finish the job.
Got it. And no doubt that it is needed. I just want to make sure we covered that for the public. So thank you for going through those details. And with that, I move to adopt the resolution approving an amendment to the fiscal year 2013-2014 annual budget of the City of Half Moon Bay to complete the dry rot repairs to the oh Jesus. Second. I'm very tired. Well, I apologize. All right, so it's late, but I don't want to interject silliness, but I just want to make sure it's covered and make sure we went through that. So thank you.
No, I think it's important that you did that.
And we know the importance of this facility, and unfortunately, over the years, didn't take care of it. And I think they made a movie about a house, something like that. Didn't they one time about the money pit? And let's hope this is not the money pit, but it's getting close to it. But we have to preserve it. And so we'll move forward and a vote, please.
Councilmember Alafano?
Yes.
Councilmember Kowalczyk?
Yes.
Councilmember Patridge?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fraser?
Yes.
And Mayor Muller?
Yes, so ordered, and that concludes our meeting, and thank all of you for 5 hours, and don't forget to stop at your stop signs and respect crosswalks tomorrow, if anyone's up watching this. Take care, thank you all, and thank you staff for the extra hard work all of you put in. And the meeting's adjourned.